Well, what's going on, Facebook family? It's your main man, Joe Dupree, along with my good friend, Edward J. Brown from Positive Choices Counseling Services. And once again, it is a Wellness Wednesday where a healthy you is a better
you.
Because your mental health matters. On this 7th day of June, we're in the month of June, summertime, summertime.
Summertime, because it's hot out there, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't know.
What's going on, man?
I know they got some haze in other parts of the country, some very toxic haze. If you're living on the East Coast, DC, Philadelphia, yes, New York City, to all our listeners and to all our friends out there, please be safe. I heard the air quality is horrendous at the point that it can literally cause some devastation if you have any type of pulmonary issue or anything with your respiratory system. So we really want you to be careful out there. Tell a friend to tell a friend, share this with a friend. We are back on. We wasn't on last Wednesday, but we're back on today, and we're going to keep it flowing and going. Don't forget, the Essence Music Festival is coming, the Essence Music Festival of Culture.
And my brother is going to be there in full effect.
Yeah, we're going to be in the building, and we're going to be giving you a lot of good information about your wellness, about your health. You know, Essence is definitely empowering the women, but there is a men's section this time where, you know, us men will be there talking about what we need to talk about, and we're going to have some great conversation during that. And listen, everybody who's anybody is going to be in New Orleans on June the 29th, the 30th. The 1st and the 2nd, you know, great lineups. We're going to be talking about that and so much more. My brother, it is still, we just came out of Mental Health Awareness Month, but we're still talking about mental health awareness because you need to know what's going on with your mental health.
Mental health awareness is every day for us, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We do 365 days a year. We don't just have this podcast during the month of May. We do this every Wednesday, and we try to bring issues that we believe will help you be a better you, issues that will directly impact you, your family, and hopefully your community. Because when you go out and you're the best you that you could possibly be, imagine the people whose lives you impact.
Correct.
So you know, we did Mental Health Awareness Month last month. But we was on the month before that, and here we are on the month after that. So we are committed to this, and that's why we do what we do.
You know, we've been talking about everything from gun violence. You know, it seems to be right now gun violence is still on a uptick. I just don't understand all that. Like the young man that was in Virginia, shot to 2 individuals. We need to start talking about ways to resolve conflict instead of pulling out a gun. We definitely got to talk about conflict resolution because it seems to be these days we can't agree to disagree without falling out with one another.
And that was one of the, you know, we've said it so many times we've done this podcast. The topic kind of chooses itself. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about self. Because, at the end of the day, anyone that does anything in particular to another individual or anything that they know is toxic to self, you really have to take a moment to step back and look at yourself. So today, I wanted to take a minute to talk about self. And so now, Brother Dupree, in all honesty, this is a topic that we could literally have 365 shows on.
True.
Because there is nothing in your life that goes on, that happens, that does not involve you, who you are, how you think, what you feel. That is the whole concept of self. So today I wanted to start off, you talked about, gun violence and conflict resolution and anger management. The first thing about self that we have to look at and take full responsibility for is the way we respond to certain stimuli. Too often we want to blame, well, if she didn't this, if he hadn't have done, we have to start looking at self. Now, when we talk about how we respond, the way we respond to different stimuli, it involves only one thing, and that's the way that stimuli make us feel. Now, see, there's the clinical side of this. Our reaction, the way self reacts, is directly connected to where a particular stimuli makes us feel. Let me show you what I'm talking about. The first time as a child, you took a piece of chocolate or a piece of candy or whatever it was, and you put it in your mouth, that sensation made self say, I like this. I like this. I want more of this. The same way the first time we taste castor oil or all of these concoctions our family used to make up for medicine.
Right. When we were sick.
When we were sick, as soon as it touched our mouth, self said, I don't like that. Okay? So now, let's take it a step further. When you see that piece of chocolate and self say, self says, I want more of that. So the way we react is we go searching and we go looking. Is there any more of that? Can I get another piece of that? The same way if self does not like something, we avoid it.
Correct.
We stay away from it. So why, when we talk about lack of anger management, we don't want to look at self?
Start with self.
We don't want to start with self.
We'll
start with the people down the street, people up the street, people around the corner. We will talk and start with everyone but ourselves. I used to sit around and talk to young brothers, and they would say, well, I ain't no punk. I'm really not understanding what punk have anything to do with.
Correct.
What do you mean, Doc? Well, I'm just trying to understand, what does that have to do with? If he calls you something, you respond, all right? Self feels a particular way. So self says, I'm going to react by punching him in the mouth. You will not blame the action on self. You're going to blame it on what he said.
Correct.
Okay? So now you'll sit there and say, and this is almost the end of this podcast, but I got to throw this out there. We will say, well, we're all going to feel something, and yeah, but here's where things take a turn for the worse. And this brings us almost to the end of the podcast, is when you begin to respond, when self begins to respond, not based on what you feel, but based on what other people think.
Come on.
All right. So now, that is where things have taken a turn.
Correct.
Remember what I said. You did something to me. So I feel angry.
Mm.
So I punch you in the face and we have a fight. My response to the stimuli was punching you. But let's say things have changed.
Mm.
So now I feel embarrassed. So I can't handle that. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to respond. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to shoot you. And you're like, what? When did it get to that point?
Right.
That's where it gets real tricky, brother.
Right. Talk to me.
This is where and why it got to that point. If me and you in the schoolyard,
come on,
and I don't like you, you don't like me, we playing the dozens or whatever they called it.
Correct.
And you said those two words that will start more fights than any two words in the English dictionary.
Your mama.
Your mama.
Your mama.
That is. Them two words right there. So now my response is we got to fight.
Right.
Okay. I didn't say I had to kill you. I said we had to fight.
And maybe, hold on. And let me say this. And maybe this is what's really going on.
I got to put a pin in there because
put it in there about the fight, because maybe the art of us, things have changed. It used to be at least you fight.
Why though? That's what I was getting ready to get to. Why have things changed though? What changed?
Good. You know, it seems to be we went from let's fight this thing out. Let us go ahead and have our disagreement. But no matter how bad the fighting, at least we live to see tomorrow. And it's done changed from that to let's pull out a weapon and let me not only shoot you, but anybody else around that I think is close to you, because I just literally want to cause mass destruction to everyone involved.
Okay. And that comes about, Brother Dupree, because remember what I said, you and I had this skirmish in the yard. 20 people. We might have gotten a little trouble or detention, stayed after school. That's a big difference. Then we had a disagreement in the yard and a fight that was videoed and streamed to 100,000 people.
Oh,
that changed it. You see how it just changed it even for you. You went, oh. So as we talk about self and the way we allow self to respond and the way we blame certain variables on why self did what. No, we did what we did because of how we felt.
Correct.
So now I'm a little embarrassed because, 15, 20 people in the schoolyard saw me get socked in the mouth. But what happens when I get socked in the mouth and now I know 250,000 people saw it?
Wow. You're right.
That's where things have changed. So
the dynamics of social media.
The dynamics of technology has changed the way self responds to stimuli. There's no difference between your mama in 1980 and your mama in 2023. The only difference is when somebody heard me say something about your mama in 2023, it's all over social media. Now hundreds of thousands of people know.
Correct.
And here's the thing. Self, this is really good stuff. Self does not have the coping skills self had back in the 80s.
Wow.
Self doesn't have those coping skills anymore because we went from doing what was right to doing what was popular.
Wow. Speak on it. Speak on it, my brother.
So we went from, look, don't do that because I said so, to would you please not do that?
So we said
would
this.
You consider not doing that?
Right. We said this in a prior podcast. Our parenting skills have changed a great deal.
Yeah.
And the respect between, let's just call it what it is, the respect between the generations have changed somewhat too. Because it used to be the younger generation had grave respect for the older generation. these days and times, and it seems to be they're getting, the disrespect level gets younger and younger. You get young children in elementary school who talk back to the teacher and then dare the teacher to say or do something, because they'll go get their parents and have their parents up at the school ready to act a fool.
And that's the part that always made me and amazed me. The student is acting up, and then they telling the teacher, call my mama. And for me, if I ever act up in school, I told you, the last person I wanted the school to call.
Right. I don't want to see none of my, I want to see none of my parents. No. I don't
want to see Gail Brown. Nothing. I don't want to see them. But so when we're talking about the evolution of self, which is what this podcast today is about, we're talking about taking and holding self accountable to the way self responds to certain stimuli. I'm going to use me for an example, because even as a mental health professional, in no way, shape, or form or remotely possible that I think I'm perfect. But what I know for a fact is I don't hold anyone responsible for the way I feel but me. But I've also done so much work on me, and I've learned that what you do is what you're going to do. But how I feel about it, that falls on me. You know, and we have a tendency to bombard ourselves with all kind of responsibilities and all kind of different, variables that we neglect self sometimes. But we have to start getting back to making sure that we are the strongest, the most positive, the most sound, well-rounded versions of ourselves that we could possibly be. In the clinical realm, we call it being self-actualized. Trying to be self-actualized, which basically is a fancy way of saying, I want to be the best possible me I can be.
Come on.
But too often, and the best way, and I'm writing it in my book, where I say too often we give people control of our thermostat. We allow people to determine how we're going to feel based on the stimuli that they present to us. Okay, we are doing another clinical term. We call that transference and countertransference, where we take from every interaction that we have. So now I look at it and I see children going out into the world without the coping skills that they need to deal with a rough and tough, rugged world. And the parents bring them to me and they say, well, he's disrespectful, or she just doesn't seem to be adjusting well to teenage life. Well, what happened? Well, she has this new teacher, and the new teacher's hard on her. And you talk to the kid, you're like, well, what's hard about the teacher? And they look at you and say, well, there's all these deadlines. What do you mean? Well, they want us to turn stuff in on a particular time. Okay. Well, what's wrong with that? I have a lot of things to do. Now, let's talk about the development of self. So when you look at a kid and talk about doing what's popular versus doing what's right, you say, listen, take the garbage out. Well, why I got to take the garbage out? Because now we don't say because I told you to.
Come on. Speak on it. Speak on it. Right.
I asked you to.
Right.
Okay. Well, why can't someone else take it out? Because I asked you to take it out. Now, what we're looking at now is the development of a skill or lack of that's going to filter into the workplace. So now you come to work for me and I say, listen, I need you to go and do such and such. Well, why I got to do it?
Right.
Why can't someone else do it? Well, because I just asked you. Okay. So when we start talking about the development of self, let's start with the kids. You brought this up. And what we do is we do what's popular because we get so caught up in how they feel. Remember?
Yeah, we want our kids. We want our kids to be our friend.
Yeah, well, if not just necessarily be our friend, we want them to always be happy
and like
be
us.
pleased,
Right.
and like us. And,
right.
and is that a reality that we live in?
No.
You know, I remember, and I'm gonna take about 2 minutes to talk about this. I remember when I was coming up as a young therapist, and I worked at an agency, and we used to, as the Black employees, we would go to lunch together. We would hang out together. We would go to happy hour together. And I remember we were having staffing one day, and one of the white staff members said, "Why does all of the Black staff hang together and they never invite the white staff to go out with them?" And you could feel the energy in the room change because all of the Black staff wanted to go off. They wanted to blast them. But since I was kind of like the senior staff, I just turned and I said, here's the interesting thing. We don't all have to be friends in order to work together.
Correct.
You know your job, I know my job. I said, now I'm more than sure if I asked around this room, how many of you have gotten together at each other's homes and been invited to, you know, gatherings or whatever? And I'm sure most of you will raise your hand. I said, but our invitation must have gotten lost in the mail. And we all see each other every day. I said, but here's the difference. The fact that you did not invite me or invite us doesn't bother me. Why does it bother you that we didn't invite you? Now, little did we know you wanted to attend. Guess what? Next time we go to, you know, Bennigan's or Chi-Chi's or whatever it was, you're more than welcome to come, because we don't own Bennigan's or Chi-Chi's. And the issue really was an issue that wasn't an issue. But
Wow.
something about her itself made her feel a particular way. And she wanted to blame or project, another clinical term, project onto us what she was feeling. I didn't have a problem with you coming to Bennigan's. We don't own Bennigan's. And guess what? The topic of conversation wouldn't have changed, because contrary to what you believed, we don't go to Bennigan's to talk about y'all.
Right.
That's not why we're together. So getting back to the way self develops and responds to certain stimuli, you discuss. There's no more authoritativeness, because that does not make up and coming development of self comfortable.
Right.
I want to do what I like to do. I want to do what's popular. Do you know, I would love to take every ounce of money I make and go buy whatever I want.
Oh,
but the
I think we all would like to do that.
Problem with that.
Yes,
the mortgage company would have a problem with that. The electric bill, you know, an electric company,
water
would
bill,
have
internet, all your bills would have a problem with that.
We have developed the ability to do what needs to be done, whether self likes it or not. We are building generations of, well, I think you should cater to me, to self. I want what I want, but you can't have that. You have not earned that yet. And you remember we talked about it in one of the other podcasts. If you want to understand what I'm talking about, anybody that watched this podcast, look at a children's league, be it basketball, football, soccer, whatever it is. And most, not going to say all, most leagues, all of the trophies are the same. The team that won, that was undefeated, got the same size trophy as the team that didn't win a game, because we're not helping them develop self in the sense of where we earn things throughout this life cycle. But instead, we're doing what's popular instead of doing what's right. So self is not developing the coping skills that it needs to deal with this rough and tough world that these kids are coming up in.
Correct. That's real tough.
You tell them, well, he has a big trophy. I want the big trophy. But your team was 0-10. His team was 10-0. They won all their games. You lost all of your games. I don't care. I want the big trophy. So what we started doing was everybody gets the same size trophy because we don't want anybody to feel bad.
Right.
So now we
don't want to hurt nobody's feelings.
No, but we wonder why self, because that's what we're talking about in the podcast tonight. Self is not developing the skills needed to be productive, functioning individuals in society. You said it a few minutes ago. So wait a minute, let me see if I get this straight. He been here 10 years. I've been here 10 months. He got a raise and I didn't. So I'm going to get my gun and I'm coming back here and I'm shooting everybody that's still here when I get back. And you and I are looking like, I don't understand 10 months versus 10 years. But when we're looking at the development of these different generations, I literally had a student on a collegiate level. And if I blacked out the name and the email said, "Good evening. I know I have not attended this class not one time, nor have I done any of the work. What can I do to make at least a C in this class?"
Well, hold it. Bookmark what you just said. So this student used two words that are almost distinct these days when it comes down to individuals. And I don't care if you're 8 to 80, dumb, cripple, or crazy. These two words are almost distinct in our vocabulary: accountability and responsibility. Those two words are almost distinct. They're almost, when you find somebody who says, I will be accountable for my actions and I will be responsible for the consequences that I have brought on myself through my actions, those two animals are almost distinct. Now, if anybody disagrees with me, this is your time to call in or to put what you need to put in. But listen, family, the truth about it is, I'm telling you, it is amazing to me how we do not want to be accountable. We do not want to be responsible, and we don't want to work to get what we need to get. Everybody wants to do this. Everybody wants to do the least amount of work and get the most amount of money. Now, here's what's funny. When you come to me, you want me to sell my products and services at a discount to you. But when I come to you to purchase whatever I need to purchase from you, you want to charge me the highest price possible. Exactly. And we just got to wake up, family, because that's why I had to tell him to bookmark where he was at, because accountability and responsibility. That young man said, I'm going to be accountable to myself for not doing what I needed to do to be where I needed to be. Is there any options you can give me that can get me back into good standings? That young man need to be applauded, regardless if you said yes, no, or anything else. Correct. Because at the end of the day, that he was wise enough to ask and really basically say, I didn't do what I needed to do, but is there an out? Can you bless me with an out?
So to piggyback on what you're saying, because people would say, like, how is someone that have not attended one class, how can we celebrate them? Because like you said, he did say that. He said, I did not come to class at all. Now, here's the flip side of that. I had another student who literally sent me an email at the end of the semester and said, I came to class every day that this class was supposed to meet, and there was never anyone in the class. I should not get a failing grade because I came to class and you weren't there. And I remember I said, I'm going to respond back. I'm going to say, I have 26 other students that was in class every week. Were you going to the correct classroom? Do you know who you actually emailed? There's a couple of variables that's just not working out here. This kid
Right.
sent back email saying the class, it was my class, and he even showed the room number. I said, son, you didn't come to that class every week and nobody was there. You must have been going to the wrong building, because we have been meeting every week for the entire semester. When I responded that, he never responded again.
Wow. Wow.
So I don't know if it was the Jedi mind trick. I was supposed to say, oh my God, I'm sorry I wasn't there. Yeah.
This was not the class. This was not the class I attended.
Nah, that was, but anyway, I wanna kind of get back on track where we were, because the end of this particular podcast, like I said, is going to be what transpires and what happens when self cares more about what other people feel than what it feels.
I have a simple saying that I teach in my class, and I taught it again today, and I'll be teaching it tomorrow. I tell people FFH, facts, feelings, hearsay. Stick to the facts, stay out your feelings, and don't listen to hearsay. If you do that, I promise you 90% of your issues will probably not be the issues that they are, because you got to ask yourself, is it true? You got to ask yourself, who told you, and are they a reliable source? And is the information you got, did it put you in your feelings? Because a lot of us, when we're in our feelings, will do some irrational things that when we look back at it, we say, oh man, I wish I hadn't have said or done that, because had I have been a person of reason and took a little step back and breathe for a minute, this may not have happened.
Well, we have to really, before we jump to the end, we got to still dabble a little bit around the middle. And the middle, what'd I do?
No, you good.
Okay,
well,
hold on. I thought I hit something. Okay. what we have to do is stay in the middle, which is, what are we doing to help the development of self? Try to imagine self is like when you were a kid and you were in science class and you put that seed in that little clear cup with the dirt, and everybody had to write their name on the cup and go put it at the window. And then the seed starts to grow and you see it sprout through the dirt.
Right.
That's self. But we know we have to get the little eyedropper and drop water in the dirt and make sure that the dirt stays moist so that the little seed could grow. Too often, we don't look at how self does not evolve because we are not giving it the nurturing that it needs to function in our society. That right there alone makes this podcast worth watching. We are not giving self, and we're talking personally. I'm speaking for myself because I deal with individuals' issues for a living, but that does not mean I am not engulfed in my own battles just as of today.
Correct.
But I try to do everything I can to make sure self is nurtured, self is strong, well fed. It's hard sometimes because it's only one me. But I understand how I feel is directly my responsibility.
Correct.
No matter if you call me ugly, I choose to feel hurt.
Come on. It's a choice.
Yeah, it's my choice. My feelings are hurt. Okay. What happens if my feelings are like, yeah, well, I might be ugly, but I ain't you.
Right. It's your opinion.
What do you mean by that? Hey,
right. That's your opinion.
Yeah, I might be ugly, but I ain't you.
Right. Come on.
So, but people have a tendency to now, because we're almost 25 minutes left in the podcast. People care more what you think.
Come on.
About self than what they think.
Come on.
And that is why suicide is on the rise in our community, in this country, in this generation.
Come on.
Because that's an option for them now.
Right.
My feelings get hurt. kill myself. Yeah, that's an option. For us, my feelings got hurt, so now I'm gonna hurt your feelings back.
Right.
But now it's my feelings are hurt, so I'm gonna hurt your feelings back. And if that doesn't work, I'm gonna kill myself. We have to look at how self has not developed throughout the generations and look at why it was not nurtured and it was not fed.
Come on.
It was pacified. It was stroked. It was enabled. We became enablers.
Right.
I told you many times in this podcast. I thank my mother for the term, and I didn't have a clue what it meant when I was 6, 7 years old. But she would say, I know you don't want to do it, but do it anyway. It builds character. And I would call my best friend and I would say, man, what is this character thing and what do I need it for? Where can I get one? What am I going to do with it? You know, but now we look at our kids and they sit there and, you know, so like you say, brother, I'm going to use my brother right here for a minute.
Come on.
We're going to sit around the table and have dinner with each other every day.
Come on.
Well, why I got to sit at this table? I want to go to my room and I want to. Fine. Take your plate and go to your room. No, sit here.
Right.
Interact with. Now,
we're going to develop a relationship. We're going to develop a relationship with each other, because another thing that really kills me too is back when I was growing up, you didn't close your door on your mom and dad.
Oh, no.
You know,
there was no my room.
Right. If I even insinuated, hey, wait a minute. Y'all need to knock before you come in here. My dad would literally come probably and take the door off the hinges and say, I'm going to show you how much I got to knock. I'm going to take the door off the hinges.
That's what I did. It became too much of a discussion. I said, so you know what? Let me eliminate this discussion. Well, why can't I close my door? I said, you know what? Let me eliminate this discussion. I took all the door off the hinges and put them in the utility room. So my thing is, when we start to look at the formation and we talk about old school, I see, you know, we just had a comment, we talking old school, but old school allowed self to develop the skills necessary to deal with good, bad, and ugly.
Come on.
Now, the development of self only deals with good. That's all it's capable of dealing with. Bad and ugly brings about distress, brings about depression, brings about suicide, brings about violence. You know, we learned how to deal with disappointment. We learned how to deal with, failure. We learned how to deal with so many different types of variables that have impacted self, that when we became, mature cognitively, we had the skills to deal with good, bad, and ugly. Now, because of the lack of, feeding self in these generations that's coming up,
correct,
they're not equipped to deal with the bad side. They're not equipped to deal with the ugly part of life. And we wonder what's wrong with them. I remember having to do things, being punished, getting detentions, or doing whatever. I remember there being consequences to life, and nobody cared. Like I said, call your mama. I would have never let my lips be formed and say call Gail Brown. But I was able to take those things that I learned, take self, the concept of self, and go out into the world and deal with it.
Right.
But we pacify now. We enable now. We try to make them happy when we don't live in a constantly happy world. So how does a child coming up I remember I had a client, and this is a hilarious story, man. And the guy was court ordered. He was court ordered to me because he made poor decisions.
Right.
And he was a Hispanic man. in middle age, and I was talking to him about why he came to see me. He said, because the court, I kept getting arrested for cutting the strings off of trees. And I'm sitting in my office, I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you ever see the little trees and they have the string to keep the wind from blowing the tree over or whatever? I said, yeah. He said, I was going around and I was cutting them because that doesn't help the tree.
Hmm.
I said, what do you mean? He said, as the wind blows, the tree forms solid on the inside to keep the tree from, to push back against the wind. He said, if you allow the string to, handle the force of the wind, the minute the tree gets big and you cut the string, the tree has not developed what it needed to develop on the inside. It did not. He said, and I used to tell people, stop doing that in my subdivision. So the people would put their trees and put the string and I would go and cut it. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, of course, this is not your tree, so you can't do that. But
Right.
I understood his concept of allow the tree to develop strength inside. And then when the hurricane comes, the tree will have what it needs to withstand the hard winds.
Mm.
We are not, from grown-ups to little kids, we are not helping self-develop. That's why we deal with anxiety, and that's why we deal with depression, and that's why we deal with, so many of these different, undesired traits. Because sometimes we do not nurture self, so that self is solid enough to say, you know what, we can get through this. We'll be all right.
Right. And that's
Just
what we
choose
got
your
to work
path.
on. Right. That's what we got to work on. We got to get to a place where we are so in tune to who we are. I can't control what other people do or say, but I can control myself and how I react to it. And if it even warrants a reaction, there are some things that you put too much reaction and too much credit to that didn't even warrant a response. Sometimes we got to learn, just because they make a move don't mean I got to make a move. Let them do what they do.
And that's where the end part of this podcast, when we're talking about self, is when did we start prioritizing what other people thought of us over what we think of us? And I watched the whole special last night, and it was just by accident, on transgender kids.
Right. That was the
It was one of the most
1619 project. Yeah.
You saw that?
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. They had a trans prom in California. Yep. Well, and I watched it, and it was so enlightening to me from so many different levels. One, the little girl who was the little boy, he said, when I was 4, I wore a hoodie over the back of my head because I wanted long hair because I was a girl. And they kept taking me to the barbershop, and I wanted long hair because I was a girl. And if you see this kid who's now 11 or 12, she is the happiest child in the world. And we will definitely force, and then they showed the picketers outside of the trans kids prom. God doesn't make any mistakes. He doesn't put people in the wrong bodies. And, I'm like, okay. But here's my thing. If you want to walk down the street and call yourself Frankenstein, as long as you ain't hurting nobody, where does all the effort to, push your self-development in the direction I want it to be? Let me nurture and make a society that whoever you are, you want to walk around, and my name is Frankenstein. Okay, nice to meet you, Frankenstein, and keep it moving. But instead, we allow personal opinions to impact how we develop self.
You know, and Edward, I want to say this, and this is for all my evangelical and all my spiritual folks out there. And listen, and once again, if you disagree with me, you got to show it to me in writing. Unfortunately, this is something I've did a lot of lectures on. I've did a lot of studying of. Even if you're a person of spirituality and you believe in a higher being, and you go to the writings, whatever writings they may be, of the Holy Quran, it could be of the Holy Bible, or whatever holy parchment you represent. In the Holy Bible, it makes it crystal clear that this God we serve does not force us to serve him. He said it is a choice.
Correct.
You can choose to listen to everything I put in this book. It comes with some benefits. Or you can choose not to, and it comes with some repercussions, better known as curses, however you want to say, blessings and curses. But at the end of the day, he doesn't put a gun to your head. He tells you you have a choice. And what ceases to amaze me is how folk who say they love God, who they have never seen, always trying to take down folk that they see every day. And somewhere in the Bible, it speaks about that. And that saddens me that you love a God you have never seen, but you hate folks you see every day. And family, we got to wake up from this, because even the God that we claim, that many of us say we serve, he does not force us to do anything. He says, listen, I lay before you two choices. Choice A, choice B. I would prefer you choose choice A, which is life. But you can choose point B.
Here's the thing, Brother Dupree. There are too many differences in this world,
right,
for me to fight all of them.
Right. Come on.
I mean, I got a problem with people that don't have style and don't know how to dress. But I ain't around here packing,
persecuting
chasing
them.
folks down, trying to say, you shouldn't wear them pants with that shirt.
Right.
I have a problem, with selfish people. It's so many differences in this world that, right, we were given free will. That's what separates us from we can choose.
Right.
I choose to accept an individual where they are.
Correct.
As long as you are not hurting. Let me tell you something. Growing up in the city of New Orleans, because this is what always gets me, and I watched the show like I was telling you about. And I don't want my child exposed to that, because I don't want my child to be. Let me tell you something. They used to put, now anyone that's from New Orleans, you can call, and my brother's usually on this show. They put the arcade, the biggest arcade in New Orleans, Pennyland, was at the end of Bourbon Street.
Come on.
So as kids with quarters in our pockets, we had to walk past all the strip joints, all the trans joints.
Come on.
All the gay bars, the lesbian bars, the restaurants, to get to the arcade. And none of that impacted my sexuality.
Come on.
I didn't walk past. Now, I remember when we got older, we were 12, and it was like, that's not a woman, that's a man dressed like a woman.
Right.
Yeah, we kept on walking to Pennyland. We're going to Pennyland. So when you take time out of your life to spew hate about anybody, I don't know how you can, I don't, knock people about their spiritual beliefs. My relationship with God is personal.
Right.
And I advise everyone to have their personal relationship with God.
Correct.
He answers my prayers. I'm in prayer right now for something that I really, really need him to do again. Show favor.
Amen.
I am in prayer, and my thing is, I don't have time to hate, because I'm too busy trying to help.
Right.
If you helping, how can you hate at the same time? I don't understand that. So we sitting here, and ain't nothing wrong with that child. That child just confused. The little girl or the little boy said he knew he was a girl when he was 4 or 5 years old. And if you see her now at 12 or 13, all she do is smile and laugh. She's so happy. Imagine if and when she was forced, she was bullied, she was picked on. So her grandparents picked her up because now she's a full girl.
Right.
The grandparents picked her up and moved her to another state.
Mm.
And that child has not had a problem yet. So when we get back and we start to wrap up this podcast and we start talking about self and how we have to take care of self, we're responsible for how self feel. We have to make sure self is strong. We have to nurture self. We cannot allow what other individuals think of us
Come on.
to supersede what we think of ourselves.
Come on.
We
That
cannot.
part right there. That part right
We
there.
cannot. If you allow what other people think of you to matter more than what you think of yourself, you just gave them the thermostat, control of the thermostat to your feelings.
Mm.
And I remember when I started, hanging out in the streets of New Orleans and we called it ribbon, people call it jawing or whatever. We would just talk about each other, man. And the way you determined whether you were winning or losing was if the other person got mad. If the other person got mad, you were winning.
Right.
So, man, we would talk about everything from your shoes to your hair to your clothes, but we were all friends. And it took imagine I go to school and somebody say, hey, fathead boy. And I'm like, that's the best you got. My friends around my neighborhood are way funnier than you.
Right.
I didn't feel like, what are you saying about me? Oh goodness. I was like, man, get a grip. And then I start firing back because I had those skills of self. I was good and myself had formed and developed, and nobody that cared for me tried to take a shot at self.
Mm.
They loved me unconditionally. So as we wrap up, I tell everyone from Generation X to all of the alphabets all throughout, we have to start getting people to take care of self, nurture self, to make sure that they understand the importance of gaining skills necessary to deal with the world. You're going to have to maybe cut some people out of your life. Here's something that I wrote the other day. The people that ain't meant to go with you on your journey are gonna be those people that don't understand you.
Right. Right.
They ain't gonna understand why you working so hard to start this business.
Correct.
They're not gonna understand why you're so committed to your family. They're not gonna understand you because they're not intended to go with you. The people who are intended to go with you are those people who are gonna understand you.
Mm-hmm. That part.
And then it won't be hard. It won't be hard to get them to understand you either.
Hold it. And we're going to have to really get down to the real nuts and bolts of things here. Everybody who starts off with you might not be everybody who finishes with you.
No.
You just gotta understand sometimes the people that you start this journey off with might not be the people you end up finishing the journey with. Brother, it's
completely different feeling.
Right.
When you are around individuals and you are on the same path in life.
Right.
Think about this. When we were coming up, man, we could stay in the club Friday till 3:00.
Right.
Get up and do what we had to do Saturday. Go back to the club. Stay in the club till 3:00 on Sunday. Get up, go to church, then go to a barbecue or whatever, and then guess what? Still be ready to go to work on Monday morning.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
shh, man, I might have one event on Saturday or Sunday. You know, you got these little ones running around and they're taking all of the energy that you have. And, you know, so you start to prioritize. And people who are not on that journey with you won't understand. I saw you laughing. You like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Trust me. I'm like,
if I do have a little bit of energy, the little jokers take it, you know?
Hey,
so, yeah.
I am the Jamaican on this set right here. I do everything. So, you know, I had a person that asked me today. They wanted me. I said, listen, I said, honestly, I hate to tell you this. I'm completely booked until next year. I said, I've got to deal with this summer. I said, I've got to deal with Essence. I've got to deal with a coming Southern University football schedule. And I said, I haven't even talked to you about my number one and number two job. So I said, at the end of the day, I still have to go to my 9 to 5. Well, my 7:30 to 5, Monday through Thursday, you know, and like I tell folks, you know, hey, these days and times, you got to do what's best for you and understand this. What might be best for you may not be best for others. But first of all, it's hard for me to take care of somebody else if I ain't taking care of myself. That's why on an airplane, they say the following: in case of depressurization, put your mask on first before you help anybody else put on their mask. And that's what a lot of us really got to stop doing. We got to stop trying to help everybody else, and we ain't even helped ourselves. And then we want to know why we passing out and suffocating. You done helped everybody else put their mask on, but ain't nobody helped you put your mask on.
Yeah. And it was very important for me today to talk about self and the formation of self and the development of self, because it is what we go through life using to cope with what's happening in the world. Relationship issues, family issues, professional issues, health issues, you know, to get word that, you know, you're not healthy. You have to have the skills and the coping ability to deal with that. You have to have the ability to, you know, say, well, it's going to be all right. I'm going to get the treatment. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to eat right, go to the gym, whatever. You have to have faith, and you have to have had the skills internally to say, I am going to be okay.
Right.
But if everything has been given to you and you have not had to deal with any of the hardships and develop those skills for, you know, there's a old saying that I've been using since I was a therapist, 20-some years old. If you were always happy, how would you know? How would you know if you don't have a frame of reference? So at some point, you had to have been sad. Or something other than happy in order to compare it. Right. But if you were always happy, how would you know what happy was?
Come on.
So we have children and we have generations in regards to their development or their lack of formation of coping skills within self that is struggling throughout this society, because if nobody else want to say it, I'll say it. We live in a jacked up society right now.
Come on.
We have people killing children. Babies. We have a sister that was killed just yesterday for knocking on a woman's door. And the woman shot her through the door because the woman had been calling her children all kind of names, and then she took one of the children's iPad.
Correct.
The woman went to get the iPad back. The woman shot her through the door.
Right.
What? So
because of an ongoing feud. You're right.
If you don't feel you need to develop skills to cope with this world we live in, then I am going to give you a freebie, a professional free evaluation right here, right now. You are going to struggle.
Right.
You're going to struggle. because the world is not cotton candy and confetti. Sometimes there's speed bumps and broken windshields.
Correct.
And until you start to understand the importance of the development of coping skills within self, we're gonna continue to have people who struggle.
You,
I think
you know,
that is a profound statement that we need to really look at. We gotta develop. You don't go play a game of football without a helmet
come on.
because you need the tools. You need the tools to play that game.
Right. To play it efficiently where you can
And
be
that's
safe
so
in the best in your.
to function in today's society, in
Come
this
on.
world we live in, there's certain skills
Right.
we gotta have that we're
Right.
not teaching anymore. We
Right.
gotta get back to that.
Right. And family, and look, I say little cliche sayings like one that was said to me today, and I had to put this one in my toolbox. You got to stop planting flowers in other folks' gardens when they ain't going to water the flowers that you plant.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right. I hear you on that one.
Yeah. You got to stop that. You got to stop. See, you got to understand. Some of you give away so much of yourself, you don't even have enough of yourself to give to yourself. Oh.
You on empty. Empty
right.
vessel, you're on empty.
Right. You making sure everybody else is fueled up, and you done literally empty the fuel tanks on everybody else, and then you running out of gas because you ain't putting no gas in yourself. Come on, family. We got to do better. Yeah, all of us have got to do better. Look, we're here. And we're here as long as we need to be here. Me and this brother, we not only own this thing, we real friends, and we talk about real issues, and we see real things happen. And everything from these mass shootings to, Lord knows, I just had an individual that was in one of my classes. I thought this cat was okay. I thought everything was fine. I come back to work on Tuesday, and they tell me that he's done OD. So family, you don't know what folk going through. So let me say this. This is a good place for me to say this. If you're looking for someone that you need to talk to, you have issues. You feel like you need to talk to somebody that's a counselor, that's a clinical professional counselor, not no card reader, not boo-boo in them. Not the dude underneath the shade tree that seems to know everything about everybody and gives everybody good. Not your girlfriend that seems to know everything, but you need to talk to somebody who knows how to handle, from a clinical point of view, counseling and talking to you. Positive Choices Counseling Service. I put it up there. There's the website. That's the website. Go there. See the services that they provide. They provide adolescent. They provide children counseling. They provide marital counseling. They provide any type of counseling you need. And my brother Edward J. Brown, I highly recommend him and his professional staff to help you with any time, because we all need somebody to talk to. Period. They take all insurance. They do a sliding scale. If you don't have insurance, you not having insurance is not an excuse for you not to make sure that your mental health is okay. Because this brother here has a method and a way that you can take care of counseling, and you don't have to have insurance. Period. Now you got to talk to him and figure out how that is. And speaking of which, let me put a number up here. So here's a number you can call: 337-446-4707. 337-446-4707. Listen, family, your mental health matters. Period. Suicide and depression is at all-time highs in communities of colors. Come on, family. Black folks of all spectrums. People of color of all spectrum are at an all-time high of suicide and of depression. And listen, all you gotta do is turn on and look at the news. The news is depressing enough. So, family, we're here trying to give you a means of release and relief. Come on, family. We're here because we care.
We're here every Wednesday. not because we don't have anything to do. We're not here every Wednesday because we just like talking to one another, which we do. But we're here because we hope we give information that makes your life just a little bit better. We hope we put out information that said, I didn't know that. And we also always say to you what I'm about to say now. If nobody else told you today, we love you. Peace, man. We see y'all next week.